What's going on there, YouTube? And welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics, and we are going to continue to cover the Origin of Hobgoblin. And we pick up with Spider-Man vs Wolverine. For all the Spider-Man fans out there, they know how important this book is, because this is the book that changes everything when it comes to Hobgoblin, or really sets up all the changes when it comes to Hobgoblin. You'll see what I mean as we go through this video and the next one coming after this one. I want to say this week or next. But either way, if you do like today's comic book video, hit that like button down below and subscribe. But here we go. So in the opening pages of Spider-Man vs Wolverine, we pick up with Wolverine and his friend Charlie in Berlin being surrounded by a bunch of different Russian spies. Now there is something I do want to point out. This part of the story does take place a long time ago. We have no idea how long ago, but we do know it is in the past. But the reason why Charlie and Wolverine is being surrounded by all of these different Russian spies is because Charlie is a freelance who works for different secret government agencies across the world. So KGB, CIA, the list goes on and on. Of course, Charlie did piss off the Russians and they want to kill Charlie. Wolverine, being that good friend, wants to protect Charlie from the Russian spies. And so you have Wolverine killing every single one of these Russian spies off left and right, except when Wolverine finishes, Charlie is gone. Charlie does leave a heart-shaped necklace, but Charlie is gone, and Wolverine's wondering, is Charlie okay, and will he ever see Charlie again in the future? So we then jump over to Spider-Man as we see him just swinging around town, minding his business, having a quiet night, except he does see some girl running down the street screaming her head off, and he is wondering what in the world is going on. This girl tells him that two shop owners have been hurt or something is wrong with them. And so that makes Spider-Man go to that shop really fast because he actually knows the shop owners pretty well. Except when he gets there to the shop, he finds two dead bodies. Of course, the two dead bodies are the shop owners. Each of them have a single shot in their head. And so it was a professional hit. And the question is, who did it? But you do have Spider-Man take a picture to hopefully take to the Daily Bugle to show them, look what happened. This is newsworthy. It should be told. And so you do have Spider-Man go to the Daily Bugle. He does share the photos over to the Daily Bugle, and hopefully they will use the photos as a way to spread news on what happened to the two shop owners. Except then you have J. Jonah Jameson come in and tell Peter Parker that he has a new assignment for him and he needs to go to El Salvador. And so you do have Peter and JJ go into the office to discuss more of this new assignment. Except that is when you have Ned Leeds come in and tell JJ they need to talk. It's very serious and they need to talk privately. Ned Leeds is one of the reporters at the Daily Bugle. But for Ned Leeds to come in and tell JJ they need to talk privately, it means it is very serious. And so with Peter Parker leaving the Daily Bugle, you do see him go over to Aunt May's house because he is late for dinner with Aunt May, Mary Jane, and also some other people. Now, at this point in Marvel Comics, Mary Jane and Peter Parker are not dating yet. They did date in the past. Of course, things did not work out, but they are good friends, and she knows that he is Spider-Man. But honestly, this part of the story is to remind us Mary Jane is very important in Peter Parker's life. And so after Mary Jane and Spider-Man leave the dinner over at Aunt May's house, they do go to a movie, and it's kind of like, okay, these two can still spend time together, even though they do have feelings for each other, and she knows that he is Spider-Man. But Right after they leave the movies, that is when Peter Parker's spider sense goes off to tell him something is about to happen. And so he makes Mary Jane leave while he go change into his Spider-Man outfit. Now he does freeze up for a hot moment because a homeless person saw him, and so he does freeze up. But unfortunately, with him freezing up for that short moment of time, there was a sniper out there. That is why his spider sense went off. That sniper found his target, killed his target, and now that sniper is gone. And so for Peter Parker, he's like, I failed. And just that quick, someone died or multiple people died. The question is now, who was the sniper? On top of that, the police officers think that Spider-Man was the one who kind of helped kill the person who got shot by the sniper. But he does leave with a lot on his mind. Now you do have Peter Parker go over to Mary Jane's apartment to have someone to talk to, because twice in one night, he has seen somebody get killed. There was the shop owner, and now there's someone who got randomly shot in the middle of Times Square. And so for Spider-Man, he wondering, is he a good hero or not? He feels helpless. He feels useless. He's wondering what is wrong with him. And in the heat of the moment where he decides that he should probably give up being Spider-Man, when he leaves Mary Jane's apartment, he kisses her. And this is the point that really begins the process of Mary Jane and Spider-Man getting back together. The next set of pages, we see that Ned Leeds and J. Jonah Jameson are still in that private meeting, and they're talking about the dead bodies that were found at the shop that Spider-Man was at earlier, and the two people who got shot at Times Square once again where Spider-Man was at earlier. And the reason why they are talking about this is because all 4 dead bodies were Russian spies. And they all were killed by Wolverine's old friend Charlie. And for Ned Leeds, he tells us this is Charlie coming out for the first time in a long time. And he's going around killing Russian spies. And so Ned Leeds wants to go over to Germany to kind of do an investigation to learn more on why Charlie is coming out of hiding all this time later. And so JJ does agree to send Ned Leeds to Germany, but of course Ned Leeds needs a photographer. And who is that one photographer? That is Peter Parker. And this is the moment where Peter Parker is once again quitting on being Spider-Man. And so when he thinks he's about to leave for the night to go have some quiet time, of course, the phone rings and JJ says, Peter, you and Ned are going over to Germany tonight. Now we do pick up with Wolverine once again, and with the dead bodies popping up and being all over the news, Wolverine took that as a message from Charlie that Charlie is back out there in the world again and Wolverine needs to go find Charlie. Except this does take place after the Mutant Massacre storyline for my X-Men fans out there. And so you have some X-Men telling Wolverine you need to stay, but of course Wolverine does not stay. Now, once Wolverine does get over into Germany, that is when he's being followed by some random muggers. These muggers are actually not that important. They were just following Wolverine to get some easy money. Of course, they did not. But when they do run away, they do run into some real Russian spies. And those spies kill off those muggers. Now, the reason why these spies are following Wolverine is because they're hoping that Wolverine can lead them to Charlie. Of course, they decide to walk away. But once they do, bam, they're both dead. And that tells Wolverine that Charlie was nearby watching over Wolverine, but did not confront him at all. But when Wolverine continues to go around the city hoping to find Charlie, he does walk by Ned Leeds and Spider-Man. And Wolverine does not know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but he remembers Spider-Man's scent. And that tells him that kid right there, Peter Parker, is Spider-Man. Now, you do have Wolverine wondering why in the world is Spider-Man in Germany for? And so he thinks that Spider-Man could be evil now. He could have turned evil and be working for the KGB. But either way, you do have Wolverine break into Spider-Man's hotel room and tell Peter Parker, listen, we don't have any time to deal with the whole process of you pretending to be someone else. I know you are Spider-Man. When you left your hotel room earlier, I came in here and found your spider gear. So I know you are Spider-Man. I need you to come with me so we can have a small talk. And this talk is more of Wolverine trying to figure out if Peter Parker does have a hand in what's going on with Charlie. And right off the bat, Wolverine can tell that Peter Parker is just really here to investigate. He has no connections to the KGB. But you do have Wolverine tell Peter Parker that he needs to leave. Go get Ned Leeds and leave before something bad happens to you. And so, of course, you have Peter Parker confused because he's wondering, why in the world did Wolverine confront me about this? How big is this situation that him and Ned Leeds are in right now? So for my Spider-Man fans out there, this is the moment we all know so very well. Because back in the 1980s, when they were making Hobgoblin, the question was, who is the Hobgoblin? Originally, it was supposed to be Roderick Kingsley, except at the last minute, Marvel changed it to Ned Leeds. Because this is the moment where Peter Parker walks into the hotel room to find Ned Leeds dead. And originally, this was supposed to be just Ned Leeds dying because Wolverine's friend Charlie's whole situation was getting too hot. And with Ned Leeds kind of investigating it, of course, it led to Ned Leeds being killed. The next video that we're going to do later on is going to retcon this moment and say Ned Leeds was killed because he was the Hobgoblin the whole time. So yeah, it was a crazy time in the 1980s to change from it could have been Roderick Kingsley to now it was Ned Leeds. And even after that moment right there, it gets even crazier. But you do have Wolverine coming in and saving Spider-Man at the last minute. And you do have Wolverine telling Spider-Man, you need to go home. Of course, when you do have Peter Parker kind of thinking about going home, he doesn't. He's like, I'm not going home. I need to figure out what in the world is going on because Ned Leeds just died. Ned Leeds is dead. And I have to go back home to JJ, Betty Brant, Ned Leeds' wife, Mary Jane, and tell everyone that Ned Leeds is dead. And so he decides to go to some costume store, pick up an off-brand Spider-Man suit so he can go out in the world to figure out what is going on with this Charlie person. Now, getting back over to Wolverine, this is the big moment of the book because you do have Wolverine finally being able to confront Charlie, to ask Charlie what in the world is going on. But we come to find out that Charlie is not just a friend to Wolverine. Charlie is more than a friend to Wolverine because Charlie is a woman. And it's a woman that Wolverine has some feelings for. And so, of course, Wolverine got another girl he's in love with. And of course, he does get some action on the side. And so we do get to see Wolverine spend some time with Charlie. They do go out to dinner somewhere. Except, of course, with her going out to a fancy restaurant, you have all these different hidden Russian spies wanting to kill her and trying to kill her in different ways. And so Wolverine and Charlie are trying to stay hidden and undercover and not try to make a scene at this restaurant because they know they're being watched by a ton of Russian spies. But of course, that is the moment you have Spider-Man just bust right in and you have every single Russian spies like, okay, gun blazing. Just shoot up Wolverine, shoot up Spider-Man, and try to kill her especially because she's our main target. But after a couple pages, Charlie does escape without telling Wolverine where she's going to go to next, and now Wolverine and Spider-Man have to fight these Russian spies, find a way out, which they do, and now they have to team up to hopefully handle this whole situation that Charlie has built, but also because Spider-Man made things a tad bit worse. Now this is the moment you have Wolverine finally telling Spider-Man what in the world is going on. And he tells us that Charlie, with her being a freelance, agent, whatever, she used to work for the KGB. She did a job, but the KGB wanted to kill her to keep that job a secret. Of course, she didn't like that, and so she went back out there and started killing different KGB members. And so now the KGB is trying to kill her. And Wolverine tells Spider-Man no government is going to protect her. And so right now, it's really just her on her own trying to kill off every single member of the KGB that was part of that last job she did for the KGB. And so you have Wolverine and Spider-Man trying to play catch up to hopefully find her and hopefully stop her as well before more people are dead. Except when they get to the last stop where Charlie was at, it's too late. She killed every single person of the KGB that was on that last job that she worked for them a while back. And Wolverine is now mad at Spider-Man because he's like, dude, this is your fault. If you didn't pop up, if you had stayed out of this whole situation, I could convince Charlie to leave enough alone. And there wouldn't be so many dead bodies all over this place. It is your fault, Spider-Man. And so, of course, you have the two of them go their separate ways. But Spider-Man is also angry at Wolverine because Spider-Man is just trying to help Wolverine out and also trying to figure out, was Ned Leeds' death really worth it? We then get a moment where Wolverine is able to find Charlie. And this is a very sad moment because, again, Wolverine actually loves Charlie. He loves her. But she tells him, you have to kill me. Because if the KGB actually comes and get me, they'll now send more spies that was outside of the last job she did for them to come capture her. If they capture her, they will torture her. And she will hate that. And it's her telling Wolverine, just kill me. Kill me now. And Wolverine does stab her. And it's like, man, this is tough because it's a woman that Wolverine loves so much. But she did not die from that one stab. Except before Wolverine is able to go for the final blow to kill Charlie, the woman he loved, that is when Spider-Man does appear. And you have to remember, when it comes to Spider-Man, he will protect anybody. Even if that person has a high dead body count, like Charlie does, he will still try to save their lives. And so right now he's like, what are you doing? You're trying to kill the woman you love. And so it does lead into Spider-Man fighting against Wolverine, living up to the title of this book, Spider-Man vs. Wolverine. Because one, these are Marvel's two best characters. Most popular characters. I'm sorry, other fans out there. It was true back then, and it's kind of true right now that Peter Parker and Wolverine is really Marvel's two best characters. But anyways, with these two going back and forth, fighting against each other and showing off their different abilities, their different fighting skills, it's honestly a pretty cool fight. But at the end of the day, this story has to end, and it kind of ends on a messed up note, really. And so with their fight finally being over, you do have Wolverine leave, but then Spider-Man's spider sense goes off, and he thinks that Wolverine is coming back for another attack. And so you have Spider-Man put all his strength and one last punch to hopefully smack Wolverine with it, but he doesn't. He punches Charlie right in the face. So now this woman has been stabbed, has been punched in the face, and it's like, oh my gosh. But then the KGB come there. They surround Wolverine, Charlie, and Spider-Man. Charlie is in Wolverine's arms, and Wolverine knows he has two options. He can go ahead and kill her and not let the KGB take her, where she'll be tortured for a long period of time, or he could try to fight against them, but in the day, he might lose this battle, and Spider-Man might die. And so you have Wolverine just stab her to kill her. Charlie dies right here. Charlie never comes back again. But with that being said, it's so messed up because Spider-Man realized that he kind of did have a hand in helping Wolverine kill her, because that punch was hard right in the face. And the way the book closes down is where you have Peter Parker finally going back home to America, but with a lot on his mind, with being with Wolverine, with Ned Leeds dying, realizing that when he finally gets back home, he's going to have to explain to JJ what happened to Ned Leeds. Peter Parker is going to have to tell Betty Brant, Ned Leeds' wife, what happened to her husband over there in Germany. And then we kind of see him at the last page go to Mary Jane's apartment because he needs someone to talk to. But also, we're telling you right now, this is the moment where Peter Parker and Mary Jane rekindle their love for one another. But like I said earlier, in the next video, Ned Leeds' death does get retconned to tell us that Ned Leeds was Hobgoblin. And in that same story, we get a new Hobgoblin. Like I said, it was a hot mess. It was such a hot mess when Marvel was trying to tell us who was the Hobgoblin. But this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please hit that like button down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. Later, guys.